Thank you very much for tuning in to episode 17 of Pushing the Pylon. This is your host, Jim Tannhauser, and I have some good news and bad news. First off, the bad news. I picked terrible last week. You had a better chance if you never watched NFL football in your life to take the 50-50 chance of just picking teams out of a hat and doing better than I did. I think I had about 3 or 4 correct. That's being generous. We'll have to go back for the official tally on that one. But the good news, it's a whole new damn week. Can't do any worse, I don't think. Knock on wood, right? We're going to find out here, though. In this episode, we're going to review week 1. The highs and lows of it. Mostly for myself, the lows of it. We're going to talk a little bit about fantasy football in that week 1 and how it impacted my leagues, the various leagues I'm in. And we're also going to talk about week 2 coming up. And we're going to see if we can pick any winners unlike we did last week. So let's get right into it. Starting off by Thursday Night Football. The defending Super Bowl champions fell right into the hangover trap. The Buffalo Bills came in as 2.5 favorites. Had, well, I'll say squares like me thinking, I'll take the Super Bowl champions with underdog points, and I'll get the last laugh. Spoiler alert, I did not get the last laugh. If anything, I laughed at the sheer ridiculousness of domination by the Buffalo Bills. 4 quarters against the LA Rams. You don't punt once. You give up 1 touchdown and 1 field goal all game. On the road, may I add. And your quarterback finishes with almost 300 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, a rushing touchdown, and almost 60 yards on the ground. Stephon Diggs, almost 125 receiving yards, 8 catches for a touchdown. And yeah, Cooper Kupp on the other side, 13 catches, 128 yards, and a touchdown is ridiculous. It's impressive. It makes him among the upper echelon of NFL wide receivers, just like Stephon Diggs. However, the Rams did not look like the Rams. They looked like the St. Louis Rams of old. At no point in this game, besides maybe at halftime when the Rams battled back to tie it up 10-10, did I think they ever had a chance. They got severely outplayed, only kept in the game by the Bills' lack of execution early on. And then when that picked up in the second half and the Bills were executing their offensive plays, it was an absolute crap show for the Rams. And that's good on the Bills. You know, that's a big start to the season. After this week, they go play the Titans, the Dolphins, the Ravens, the Steelers, the Chiefs, the Packers. So it doesn't get much easier in there. You know, I do think they beat the Titans. They're 10-point favorites there. They go and play the Dolphins. That's going to be a tough game. We're going to really see the Dolphins' true colors this coming week when they play Baltimore, but we'll talk about that after. And then speaking of, the Bills go and play the Ravens after. They play the Steelers after. And then they play the Chiefs and Packers. So no guaranteed wins in there for the Bills at all. They're going to have to continue to prove themselves even after a week 1 performance like that. And my big takeaway is a fantasy, whatever you want to call it, being in almost a dozen leagues, is that Cam Akers was nowhere to be found. He touched the ball 3 times, I believe. One of which was a catch behind the line of scrimmage, behind the quarterback. Didn't even count for a reception for PPR leagues. And finished with 0 points total. Guess who had him in almost every single starting lineup that he had? It's me, because I drafted Cam Akers a lot. I was thinking a big bounce back year from the Achilles injury. Despite what the trends show about Achilles injuries being completely the leading downfall to a lot of athletes' careers. I hope that's not the case with Cam Akers here. I hope it's more of just a coaching decision that he saw Darrell Henderson perform. But the reality is the stat line doesn't show that. 13 carries for 47 yards for Darrell Henderson. Yeah, it's tough when you're losing by a lot to the Bills to try to establish a run game in there. But I'm not sure what Sean McVay is seeing. If he's seeing a Cam Akers that is a shadow of himself from last year before the injury, or the year before, or in college, then that's one thing. But if it's truly just riding the hot hand and a coach's decision, that really worries me as a Cam Akers fantasy owner. And because of that, I benched him in most lineups for week 2. By playing whether it was a wide receiver or another running back that may be even riskier than I thought Cam Akers was in week 1. We'll see how that goes. And we'll talk about that fantasy lineup a little after. Going into Sunday, however, I was thinking, okay, Rams 0-1, no big deal. I love the board for Sunday, right? What was my big lock of the week, I thought? The Carolina Panthers. Baker Mayfield going back against his old team in Cleveland to whoop them up with his new weapons, Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, you name it. I thought he had it. And instead, an absolute heartbreaker at the end of the game where the Panthers take a lead with a little over a minute left, let the Browns go down the field. Their rookie kicker, Cade York, kicks what I believe a 57-yard field goal for the win. Absolute scenes. If you picked the Browns, was one of the best games you were going to watch all day. If you picked the Panthers like me, it was a sign of things to come if Thursday wasn't enough of a sign. And my second big lock of the week was the Saints minus 5.5. I thought they'd go in and whoop up the division rival Atlanta Falcons, despite what history tells us about going against home underdogs in divisional games. This continued the trend because even though the Falcons lost, they covered, but only losing by 1, I believe it was 1 or 2. I think it was 1. And it was rough. It was just a rough pick. Picked the correct winner, so in my survivor pool where I picked the New Orleans Saints, I moved on to next week. But a hollow victory it was fun to watch the Saints come back. It was nice to see Michael Thomas return and prove all of you haters absolutely wrong about Mr. Slant God. He's just Mr. Receiver God at this point. Doesn't matter if you give him Drew Brees, Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill, you name it back there. That man's going to perform because he went to the Ohio State University. But that was another loss of ours. And of course, being a Jaguars fan, that game was a heartbreaker. Blowing an 8-point lead in the fourth quarter of a football game is inexcusable. And yes, I prefaced that by saying I know our defense was terrible. I knew that coming into the game our defense would be shaky. Carson Wentz looked like his MVP season all over again. Curtis Samuel looked like Andre Johnson out there. Just everything he did, ridiculous. Defense didn't have an answer for it. Antonio Gibson running like an old school Clinton Portis on our defense. It was no good. And on top of it, poor Trevor Lawrence. Yeah, he made some bad passes. Of course, he does. Every quarterback makes at least one bad pass every game for the most part. But the passes he was making were getting dropped. Big 4th and goal play. He threw it a little high to Travis Etienne, sure. But what did Etienne do? Tried to grab it. Looked like he spiked into the ground. Because I don't know how, but it was a huge drop on 4th down. And there were multiple drops besides that. The Jaguars did not look like they could execute. And the few times the receivers looked like they were ready to catch the ball, Trevor made a bad throw. Whether it was behind the receiver, underthrew the receiver, you have it. It happened that game. Now, not everything is destruction and despair for the Jaguars. They looked okay. They competed, and they nearly won that game. They needed one more defensive stop at the end to win. Didn't get it. They have to shake it off and play next week. They go against the Indianapolis Colts, who they also did not look great, or at least up to their potential against the Texans, where they tied ultimately after coming back from, it was at least 2 scores down, 2 of which being O.J. Howard's touchdowns. Ridiculous fantasy start for O.J. Howard this year on a new team. Definitely someone I'd look out for on your waiver wires if you're struggling for a tight end. But anyway, I don't think the Jaguars have any reason to think they can't win Sunday against the Colts. Matt Ryan does not look invincible. Jonathan Taylor, yeah, he looks invincible. Yeah, he's going to run through you. And yeah, it's going to take 2 or 3 Jaguars to tackle him. But if that's all you have to worry about, don't let those receivers beat you. And make sure to score when you get the chance on offense with short fields and good field position. There should be no issue. The Jaguars should go right back into beating up on the Colts like they have the past 2 seasons. I have no doubt in that. And I'll tell you right now, before we make our picks week 2, I'm going with the Jaguars week 2 to win. I digress, however. That was another heartbreaking loss for me. So if you follow my TikTok page, by the way, Hauser Jr., if you don't, I recommend you all do that now if you have a TikTok and enjoy the app. Because we make some picks on there on Sundays, and we do content that isn't available on YouTube. We did a random generator. So I gave those 2 locks. I picked the Panthers and Saints, and I let an NFL team generator, which randomly generated a team over my head. And I would pick them for the 3rd pick of the week. So we get the Green Bay Packers, -1, right? I say, great, no problem. I think the Packers are a good pick. Are they my first pick? Not necessarily, because I thought the Vikings looked great. But I said, sure, the Packers are more than capable of winning this game. It's very possible, and it'll be fun to watch. I'm not sure any of those things were true because the Packers got demolished. Aaron Rodgers got demolished. His offensive line got demolished. And the secondary got torched by the Vikings. Justin Jefferson, nearly 200 yards receiving, multiple touchdowns. Just not good. Not a good sign for the Packers at all. They go play Chicago next week. That is their last chance to prove that this was just a fluke week 1. If they go beat up on the Bears like we're used to seeing every year, all may be back to normal. However, God forbid they lose to the Chicago Bears and go 0-2, which would let the Chicago Bears go 2-0. We're talking about a whole new narrative there in the NFC North. Even so, where the Detroit Lions should feel like they can surpass the Green Bay Packers. Why not? The Detroit Lions may have lost, but they put up 35 points against the Eagles. Very impressive stuff for a lot of their huge talent. DeAndre Swift, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jared Goff, I think, even had a decent game compared to what most expected out of him against the Eagles. So bad picks all around for your boy. Terrible picks all around for your boy, as a matter of fact. Who could have predicted the Bears beating the 49ers? Yeah, I picked the 49ers by spread, but even if you asked me then, I would have told you, I don't feel totally confident about this pick. It's going to be a shaky cover, but it wasn't a cover at all. The Bears nearly covered on their own end. They won by 9 points. The Pittsburgh Steelers winning in overtime against the Bengals. Yes, the AFC North is very unpredictable when they play each other. Any team can beat any team in that division. But I figured the Bengals would come out hungry, losing a Super Bowl, go and beat up on the Steelers with unproven quarterbacks. But they let Mitch Trubisky beat them. Joe Burrow threw 4 interceptions. The team had, I believe, 5 turnovers in total at the end. He may have gotten sacked 5 times on top of it. Very scary stuff for the Bengals. Their only saving grace is that they go and play Cooper Rush and the depleted, demoralized, very questionable Dallas Cowboys next week. Bengals have no reason not to win that game. Similar to the Packers. That's a show-me game. If you go and lose that game next week, there's a lot of trouble brewing in that locker room. The New England Patriots. Yes, a lot of us didn't think the Pats would win that game against the Dolphins. However, they did not even look competitive. 20-7 final score. The Patriots offense looked very pedestrian most of the time. Their leading running back had under 50 yards. Their leading receiver had 55. Mac Jones had 213 passing yards. Just didn't look good. And on top of that, the Dolphins managed to win by double digits, while their running back only ran for 25 yards. Their leading rusher, 12 carries, 25 yards. Tyreek Hill, big player of that game for them. 8 catches, 94 yards. Also, Dolphins defense. Watch out for them this year. If you were a fan of Pushing the Pylon last year, you know I'm very high on that Dolphins defense. More so this year than last year. Now that they have the offense around them, that's a complete team right there. Even down to their fantastic Pro Bowl kicker, Jason Sanders. Watch out for the Dolphins this year. Buffalo Bills. Most people in the league are calling you the best team in the league right now. Don't slip up to the Dolphins. Dolphins could sneak around and make that division tough for you if you're not careful. Dolphins win week 1, however. Ravens beat up on the Jets. We knew that was coming. I don't even have to get into that. J.K. Dobbins back next week, most likely for the Ravens. Huge for them against the Dolphins. That could be the deciding factor if Dobbins gets enough touches to make a difference. The New York Giants. Let's talk about the New York Giants. On Sunday, I watched all of Sunday's games with two Giants fans. Two of my very good friends, two of my very best friends, as a matter of fact. Shout out to Nate and Cody out there. Congratulations for your Week 1 win. New York Football Giants, Saquon Barkley ran a hole straight through the Titans defense. He looked back to his normal self, the self that we all thought Saquon was coming out of Penn State. He finished with a total of, pulling it up right now for confirmation, 164 yards and a touchdown on 18 carries. Derrick Henry had 3 more carries than Saquon Barkley and had exactly half of his rushing yards. That is a mind-blowing stat right there. It makes you think, is Derrick Henry going to get back to what we saw last year? Or is this a sign of things to come with the Titans? Shaky Titans. Ryan Tannehill, that being said, did have a fairly good game. 266 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. However, at the end of the game, Randy Bullock had the chance to win it. Went to kick the field goal. Missed. Gave the Giants a 1-0 start. Huge start for the Giants. They go play next week the Carolina Panthers, who were 0-1. Big chance for the Giants to start off the year 2-0, which is huge for them because Week 3 they go play the Cowboys. If they can go 3-0, they get a leg up in that division. New York Giants may be everyone's Cinderella team going into midseason. We had the Kansas City Chiefs, Arizona Cardinals. Lived up to the shootout everyone thought it was. Total of 65 points scored. However, many thought it would be a little bit closer as the Chiefs win by 23 points. Patrick Mahomes, my God. What can you say about Patrick Mahomes besides that? I'm sorry, Josh Allen fans. Patrick Mahomes, in my opinion, is the best quarterback in the NFL still to this very day. I mean, 30 for 39, 360 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. My God, Patrick Mahomes, what more do you need to see from this man? In his years as a starter, let me go. Conference championship, lose to the New England Patriots. Year after, win the Super Bowl. Year after, lose in the Super Bowl to Tom Brady. The year after, lose in the conference championship to the Cincinnati Bengals. This man Mahomes has been in the conference championship every single season that man has had the chance to take over and play the starting role. And we still have people out here calling the Chiefs a fluke. We had people out here saying, Tyreek Hill's gone. What will Patrick Mahomes do now? Oh, I don't know. Throw eight receptions for 121 yards and a touchdown to Travis Kelce? Is that easy enough? Let your rookie running back run for 12 carries, 62 yards and a touchdown. Or let Clyde Edwards-Helaire get 2 touchdowns on the Cardinals. I don't know. I don't know how people can look at this Kansas City Chiefs team and not give them a chance to just go right back to the AFC Championship and this time go back to the Super Bowl for the 3rd time in Mahomes' career already. I definitely see that being possible. I, as a matter of fact, think the Chiefs will eventually win the AFC, barring any crazy injury or circumstances to that. And on the other side of the ball, the Arizona Cardinals. Now, I'm not going to pin this all on Kyler Murray. You know, all the Call of Duty talk, all the contract talk about him needing to study more film. It hasn't looked good for Kyler. And a game like this doesn't help that narrative. Under 200 passing yards. 2 touchdowns without a pick, though. And on the ground, only 30 yards rushing. So, really not a threat. This game was out of reach early because the Chiefs just capitalized early on all of their drives. Kyler Murray. Now, I'm no NFL quarterback. I'm not even a non-professional quarterback. I've never played quarterback in organized football. However, it just seems like Kyler Murray is just having a tough time reading that defense out there. And if any of you football experts out there watch this, let me know if I'm off base thinking this. I'm just seeing a lot of pre-motion, pre-snap calls that when other quarterbacks do it, you feel like they're assessing the situation. They're block this, watch this side, all this. When Kyler Murray does it, it feels like he's guessing, right? And that could be week 1. That could be the jitters against the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know. We're going to have to see more Cardinals games to see the true underlying issue if there is one. But, man, this does not play well for the narrative that the Call of Duty XP weekend with Kyler Murray is a bold topic. And if you're unfamiliar with that, basically, advanced stat people, I don't know how they do it, have determined that when double XP in Call of Duty comes out, Kyler Murray performs astronomically worse than he does than when double XP is not out. And we're going to see this year again. You know, everybody and their mother is going to be looking out for that. But like I said before, a game like this doesn't really help that narrative. We'll see as we go on to the season how much of a real issue that is. This was one of the few games I had right, believe it or not. The LA Chargers beating the Vegas Raiders. It was closer than I thought. It was only a 5-point game. I thought the Chargers were going to just beat up on the Raiders, and they kind of did. Herbert almost had 300 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 picks. Had no run game. Eckler only had 36 rushing yards for him. So this was all Justin Herbert, all Chargers defense. And the only thing on the Raiders side that I can point to as a huge sign of impressive feat is Davante Adams. 10 catches, 141 yards, and a touchdown. And quite possibly the greatest move I've ever seen a receiver make with my own 2 eyes live. He absolutely fooled Asante Samuel Jr. He made one fake cut the other way. Asante Samuel just jogged right on by him and didn't even think twice about turning around. And Asante Samuel's a very good corner. Very young, but very good corner. Davante Adams made him look like a JUCO player. I'm often one in the friend group to say that I think healthy DeAndre Hopkins is better than Davante Adams. Thinking guys like, Justin Jefferson may be better. But even games like this, but plays like that especially, with that move on Asante Samuel, helped me realize that Davante Adams is, probably the best receiver in the league right now, and I'm not going to debate that anymore. Even if I may think other receivers are just as good, like Michael Thomas, if not better. Davante Adams has not given me a real justification to argue against him being number 1 at this time, no matter the team he's on, and especially if I'm not too high on Derek Carr. I have to give more respect to Davante Adams for still putting up stat lines like this in a loss where Derek Carr is throwing for 3 picks and only 2 touchdowns, one of which going to Davante Adams. Chargers short turnaround this week, though. Thursday night football. They play the Chiefs, who we just talked about. In a minute, I'm going to make a pick on that game. For my actual pick on the game spread-wise, make sure to go to, like I said, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter. Follow Pushing the Pylon. You'll get our exclusive videos on Thursday nights, on Monday nights of our picks, whereas just Sunday, you can get the slate of games, but it doesn't have Sunday. It definitely doesn't have Thursday because it would have already passed by then. So make sure to get up on that. Follow our other pages, and you will see all of our picks. And like I said, they can't get much worse than week 1. So you're going to want to follow along now. This is where the buck starts heading up. Last game on the slate of Sunday, the Tampa Bay Bucks just throttled the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, Dak Prescott got hurt. He's going to be out for at least a month or 2. Very tough for the Cowboys, but what can you say? Leonard Fournette dominated the Cowboys defense. Mike Evans beat up on the Cowboys secondary. And the Bucs defense played fantastic. Did not allow one single touchdown all game. Allowed 3 points to the Cowboys, which came very early in the game on one of their first couple possessions. Held Zeke Elliott to 52 yards. He only had 10 carries, so he did average a very serviceable and, acceptable amount of yards. Just not enough touches, not enough exposure in a game where you're down, trailing all game. It's tough to do that. Then you get Cooper Rush in the game later on. So, you're going to have to run the ball more. Teams are going to be preying on that. You have to rely on Cooper Kupp to make a few plays. Or Cooper Rush to make a few plays. And it's 7 for 13 with 64 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 picks, getting sacked twice with a QBR of 11. I'm going to go on a limb and say that did not succeed, and the Bucs did exactly what they wanted to do to get that win. Cowboys are in deep trouble, though. Bucs are right where they want to be. They play the Saints, I believe, next week, which is a fun game to watch. The winner of that game may take the NFC crown as best team at the moment. Cowboys are just fighting for their lives. They can't start the season 0 for 2, 0 for 3, 0 for 4. If that starts happening, goodbye. They're gone. There's some rumors out there they need to trade for another quarterback. I've heard Jimmy Garoppolo was the leading candidate. I've heard some rumblings of a Teddy Bridgewater possibility. Garoppolo is the more likely option that you're going to see me give any credence to. Do I think they do it? Ultimately, I don't think they do it. I don't think they pull the trigger on Garoppolo. But if they do, I think the Cowboys can be a contender. I don't think Garoppolo is a great quarterback. I think he's good enough to carry that Cowboys offense, to let their weapons shine. He can do just enough. Will he? I don't know. Will he even get traded to the Cowboys? I doubt it. Final game of the week, and this is a fun one to talk about. Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos went back to Seattle, lost by 1 point. Seattle won 17-16. And if you didn't watch it, the Broncos could have had 40 points this game. They got stopped on the 1 yard line twice, I believe. They got stopped on 4th down in the red zone 3 times, I believe. None of which times they kicked a field goal. Every time they got stuffed, twice they fumbled on those plays. And they still had a chance at the end of the game to go down the field and win. They're at about half field, midfield, maybe a little before it. And they let 40 seconds run off the clock without calling one of their 3 timeouts. Instead, they wait till the clock's about to hit 0, call a timeout. Waste 40 seconds off the clock. Don't go for it on 4th and 5 with Russell Wilson, the franchise quarterback they just traded their future for to acquire. Don't want to do that. They instead let Brandon McManus attempt a 64-yard field goal with 20 seconds left when they had 2 timeouts still. And it's not a surprise to say he missed. He's not expected to make that field goal, even if Brandon McManus is among the top kickers in the NFL. Arguably in history the way he kicks, but that just wasn't in the cards. It shouldn't have been expected. Blame should go to Coach Nathan Hackett here, former Jaguars coordinator, as some of you Jags fans may remember. Should have called the timeout. I've heard Richard Sherman on a different podcast talk about how Russell Wilson doesn't have the power to call timeouts yet with the Broncos, like Mahomes would with the Chiefs, like Brady would with the Bucks, like Breeze did with the Saints. Russell Wilson doesn't have that privilege. Now, I don't know about that. I'm going by what Richard Sherman said, an NFL professional that played with Russell Wilson before. But regardless, Coach has the ultimate decision. He could make that timeout call 30 seconds earlier. They could have went for that 4th down, got the first, then used their second timeout, tried to get a little further up the field, use that last timeout, kick the field goal from a much more manageable range. But that didn't happen. Instead, the Broncos are going to have to live with 0-1 in a very tough division where you can't be giving up losses like this early. They play the Texans next week. It's a good chance for them to bounce back. After that, their schedule gets much tougher. But if they can focus on the Texans, blow them out like I think they have a good chance to week 2, they're right back at it, and all of us forget about that week 1 blunder. Week 2 of football, we have the Thursday night football game, Chiefs and Chargers. My gut instinct tells me it's going to be a high-scoring game. But the over-under definitely compensates for people like me who think that. I believe last I checked there was 54, which is a very high over total, especially on Thursday night football, where I feel like scores tend to be lower. I'm not sure why. I'm going to give out my official pick, like I said, on my TikTok, on my Facebook, on my Twitter. Make sure to follow those. But the Chiefs are -4. It's going to be a fun game, and I don't think either team is going to get blown out. So tune in for that pick. Usually the video gets posted Thursday afternoon. Give it around 3 or 4, maybe even 5 Eastern Standard Time. Definitely before kickoff. Get our picks. Get the drop. We're going to give out an anytime touchdown prediction as well. Make sure to hop on that. Looking to Sunday, Jets and Browns. Browns are favored by 6.5 points. Something tells me the Jets are going to keep that closer than a lot of people think. Now, will they win? I don't know. Can they win? For sure. The Browns, I'm not taking anything away from them. They could have very easily been 0-1 week 1. We'll see if I'm wrong with that take. If they go and beat the Browns by 30, or if they beat the Jets by 30, clearly they're good. Clearly they're, contenders to make a run at the division, even though I don't think so with the Ravens and Bengals. But I digress. The next game, Commanders 1-0, beat up the Jaguars on offense anyway. Going against the Lions, who also had an equally as strong offensive game week 1. Lions go into this game as 1.5-point favorites. I don't like that line. I think a lot of people are going to jump on the Commanders there. Again, I'm going to give out my pick on Sunday. I still have more time to think about it, but I do believe that's going to be a high-scoring game. That over-under sits currently at 48.5. I'd watch for that over. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. One of my favorite games of the week, Bucks and Saints. I think the Saints being 2.5-point underdogs is a good play here. Saints usually dominate the Bucks in regular season play, with their only loss in the past couple years coming in the playoffs against the Bucks. Other than that, they've blown out the Bucks early in the season. They've had defensive showcases against the Bucks. They've had Michael Thomas show up against the Bucks. All of which in New Orleans I think happens this week. I don't think they blow out the Bucks, but I do think they win that game. We have the Giants and Panthers. Giants are favored by 2. I definitely see a little bit of a big win hangover for the Giants looming. But if any quarterback can succumb to that and give that team momentum, it would be Baker Mayfield. I'm not a huge believer in him, especially after last week. Look for the Giants to make that a close game, even if they don't ultimately win it. Giants have a lot of good things going on. They could, like I said earlier, be one of the league's surprise teams around that trade deadline that maybe they want to go for a big piece if they can make a playoff push. That's getting ahead of ourselves. We'll see if that's actually the case in a few weeks. New England Patriots favored by 2 over the 1-0 Steelers in Pittsburgh. I think a lot of people are going to hammer the Steelers here. They think New England's no bueno. They think the Steelers could have, beat up on the Bengals, but instead went to overtime. I'll give it out right now. I think the Patriots got this personally. And I don't think they're a good team. As a non-Patriots fan, I'll be the first to tell you they are fraudulent as can be. But that line making them -2 makes me think a lot of people are going to take the Steelers. I think the Pats win by that field goal, win by that touchdown, whatever it may be. Watch out for that one. Colts Jaguars. Jaguars underdogs by 4. I gave it away earlier. I think the Jags can win that game at home. I think they can make Matt Ryan look very, very mid. And that could all come even with Jonathan Taylor having a breakout performance like I highly expect him to against a shaky Jaguars defense. Another big game of the week along with that Saints-Bucks game is in the AFC side. Dolphins-Ravens in Baltimore. Baltimore's -3.5. I think that could be a low-scoring game. 2 great offenses, 2 very flashy, fast offenses. I think a lot of people see that, though. I think that line compensates for that. It's only 44.5, which, just like that Patriots line, a lot of people are going to look at that and think they found free money, and they're going to go over. Don't be so sure. That could be a low-scoring game, even with guys like Lamar Jackson, Tyreek Hill having good games. Watch out for that. I do think the Ravens ultimately win that game, though. Rams-Falcons, big chance for the Rams to come back and beat up on the Falcons, especially after the Falcons blew a 16-point lead in the second half of that football game. Rams are favored by 10.5. I do think they win by double digits. I do think they show that their offense was just dormant week 1, and that's not a sign of the whole season. Hopefully, selfishly for my fantasy teams, that means Cam Akers gets some touches, gets back on the fantasy score chart. But I like the Rams there. Seahawks 49ers. 49ers -8.5 against Seattle. I think that'll surprise people too. Seeing a 49ers team lose to the Bears, seeing a Seahawks team beat the Denver Broncos, play fantastic defense, and have Geno Smith have a beautiful game like he did. I think a lot of people are going to like the Seahawks +8.5 here. Do I, though, is the question. I'm not completely sold. Something tells me that, we'll put it this way. I'm not going to say that I think the 49ers will cover, but I do think Seattle will lose, and I do think Seattle will lose by more than a touchdown. So you conclude what that is, and in the meantime, wait for your answer on Sunday where I give out that pick because I need more time to think. Cincinnati being a touchdown favorite over the Dallas Cowboys. I do think they beat the Cowboys. With Cooper Rush, that's just a lot to ask for him to come in and beat the AFC champion Cincinnati Bengals. The line only being 7 is a little suspicious. I would take it. I'll take the Bengals there. Maybe even a look at the over if you can get it for low. Bengals may put up a lot of points. It's 41.5. I just worry about the Cowboys not contributing to that. They may have a low-scoring game like last week. Texans Broncos, similar to the Rams. Another home game for an 0-1 team going against a team they're significantly better than. Broncos -10. I say take the Broncos. Feel comfortable. It's a high number. They should beat up on the Texans. And I know I have friends out there who love Davis Mills, who love Dameon Pierce, who love Brandon Cooks, and most importantly, don't like Russell Wilson. But Broncos are going to bounce back. Broncos at Mile High, playing the Texans. It's going to be one of those weird 4 o'clock scores, I think. And maybe not this drastic, but like a 36-9. Like a 27-9. Something like that. I could see the Texans scoring 9 points. And maybe even a touchdown with a failed 2-point conversion or a missed kick. Who knows? Cardinals Raiders in the battle of who may be fraudulent. Raiders are -5.5 in Vegas. The loser of this game is 0-2 and is very low, if not last place in their division, most likely at that point. I like the Cardinals getting points here. I can see the Raiders coming out early and beating up on the Cardinals early, but something tells me that Kyler Murray, I just don't see I know it's a bad pun, but a gamer, a baller like that, a competitive guy like that, going down 0-2 after getting embarrassed week 1, and now playing the Raiders, a very winnable game. I'll take the Cardinals with the points, maybe even the win, but the points are safe, 5.5. Sunday Night Football, another 0-1 team going against a team they should beat at home. Packers in Lambeau, -10 against the Bears. In all respect to the Bears, they played a great game Sunday. I'm going to take the Packers. That shouldn't be a surprise there. They should beat up on the Bears, even if it's a divisional game. Aaron Rodgers, prove yourself. Do it again. You're a first ballot Hall of Famer. You're one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history. Top probably 3 to 5 quarterbacks I've watched in my lifetime. Go out there and you win that game by 17, 20 points against the Bears. Show that division who's boss again. It's up to you, Aaron. It's up to you, because the Vikings play the night after. You won't know what they do. You just got to get that win on Sunday Night Football. And the Vikings on Monday Night Football play the Eagles, which is a fantastic matchup. Definitely a potential preview of NFC Divisional, NFC Championship matchup. It's in Philly. They're -2 against the Vikings. I like the Vikings here. I do like those 2 points. That does help a lot. I think the Vikings have another offensive showcase with Justin Jefferson. Even with the Eagles having the good corners and secondary that they do. Justin Jefferson just seems like a Jonathan Taylor type where you can't plan to stop them. You can plan to contain them and stop the rest of the offense. I think that's the key for the Eagles. If they do it, maybe it's a different result. I think the Vikings are going to cover that spread. And the other Monday night game, Titans and Bills. Bills in Buffalo hosting the Titans. They're 10-point favorites. That line seems a little too high. I know the Titans didn't look good. I know they lost to the New York Giants. And I know the Bills are a much scarier offense in New York. But they still got Derrick Henry. And on a good day, if that run game can get through the Bills, they're going to manage a lot of clock. They're going to eat up a lot of clock. That score total might be low. And the only thing worse, not the only thing worse, but one of the worst things you can have in a game where you're picking a -10 team is to have a low-scoring, slow-paced game. It's just there's not enough points on the board to win by 10 at that point. You know, you find yourself in the fourth quarter, kind of like Monday Night Football, in a 17-16 game, in a 24-21 game. Situations like that where in the fourth quarter you're not going to be happy having the Bills -10. Does that mean I'm taking the Titans +10? Not necessarily. You're going to have to tune in to Monday Night Football picks for that. What I think, though, maybe an under game. Watch out for the under there. Both teams can manage the hell out of the clock. At 48, that gives you a lot of buffer zone, too. You can have 6 touchdowns in that game and still be good. Regardless, it looks like a fun slate of games, though. Very exciting for week 2, and I'm very excited to get back in the winning side of things by picking some correct picks. My week 1 for fantasy football, 90% of my leagues I won. One of my bigger leagues I lost. I'm a new guy in this keeper league. Weird league where you have to have 2 defensive teams, 2 kickers, 2 tight ends. Very weird league, but I'm getting the hang of that. I like my team in that league. Just wasn't in the cards to win week 1. Cam Akers was a big part of that. But in my main dynasty league, I had Cam Akers start, give me 0 points. I had Aaron Rodgers start, give me 3 points. I had Dallas Goedert only give me 9 points, and I still dominated for the win. In the offseason, I picked up I picked up Saquon Barkley to go with Jonathan Taylor as my 2 big running back duo. I went and got Jameis Winston as another quarterback for the Super Flex League. And they all paid dividends. Jameis blew up for a good game. Saquon blew up for a good game. It's IDP as well. So I had Minka Fitzpatrick with an interception, 14 tackles, a block kick, a pick 6. He had more points than everyone on my team with the exception of Jonathan Taylor. He outscored Michael Thomas. Saquon Barkley as well. He was only 2 points behind Jonathan Taylor, however. Ridiculous. TJ Watt showed out for me. Micah Parsons showed out for me. My IDP team, I can't complain about it at all. Now that TJ Watt's hurt, I get to bring in another star linebacker off the IR, Darius Leonard. I know it's the Jaguars, and I hope he doesn't have a big game week 1, but something tells me he might have a big game week 1. And those players that I named before are surrounded by Terry McLaurin, Cortland Sutton. My bench is Jared Goff at quarterback, who I love in fantasy this year. James Robinson was sitting on my bench with 2 touchdowns. Young backs like Ramondre Stevenson, Michael Carter, Alexander Madison are there. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jacoby Myers, Mecole Hardman on my bench with Jarvis Landry. If I have any injuries, to my starting receivers, I feel good because there's a lot of backups to put in. Even on the taxi squad where we have Pat Freiermuth just sitting there waiting to get used. No reason to call him up when you have Dallas Goedert, Mike Gesicki, and the works. I thought I had another tight end. Oh, I have Adam Troutman, but he's also on my taxi squad. Now, if you don't know, a taxi squad is where you put your rookies that you draft every year. This is a dynasty league, of course, so you keep your team forever. You draft rookies, you put them on a taxi squad where they don't count as main roster spots, which helps you take a chance on people, let them develop, see if they're any good. And I think we have a good system here. That's where a guy like Cam Akers came from for me. I know bad start, but great player off that type of taxi squad. Josh Allen, the Jaguars, Josh Allen. Isaiah Simmons, Ramondre Stevenson, Alexander Madison. These were players that made up my taxi squad early on. Now, besides the ones I named, it includes Rachaad White, Hassan Haskins, Jalen Tolbert, and Jordan Love. I love this Dynasty League. Am I the best team in it? No, I think my buddy Blaze has a powerhouse there. But he's had a powerhouse in past years and hasn't won. So we'll see if that happens again or if he goes and wins the league this year. I said it last year, but I want to hold myself to it this year. I plan on getting a few of those guys on the Pushing the Pylon to talk some football, to add a second guest. So you don't have to hear my voice over and over and over and over again. But that's for the future. I love week 2 personally. I'm excited for it. I can't wait to get back into more picks. And in the meantime, make sure to follow Pushing the Pylon on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok, and definitely where you're watching this on YouTube most likely. Make sure to subscribe under this video. Make sure to share the video, like the video, comment on the video. Tell me where you think I'm out of my mind with some of these takes and predictions. Let me know where you agree with me on some of these takes and predictions. But that's been Pushing the Pylon. I love this. I am so glad football's back. I can go 0 for the rest of the season on picks. Please don't. But I can go 0 for the rest of the season on picks. And I just appreciate that I'm able to sit here with a microphone, talk at a camera, talk to all of you out there, and just talk football. I love it. Until next time, thank you very much for watching. See ya.
In Deckung, wir starten unseren Bombenangriff.